Go on,
Yeah, how's the
yeah,
levels?
levels are great. I can hear you
Excellent.
because we're not doing like a super fancy interview setup.
Ah, nice.
It's mostly the audio.
Okay,
There's just a little bit of film as well.
I'm with you.
What were you just saying? That it's not about the gear, but it is about the gear. But it's
not
only
about the
people
gear,
that have
but
the
it
gear that
definitely
say
matters what gear you have. Well, actually, yeah, I realised that in digital stuff, it doesn't actually matter that much. But then you move to film, or you move to like some of the stuff that people are shooting with at the top level, and it's like everything you point it at looks amazing. It's like the secret that no one tells you when you're trying to like slum it with all these DSLRs and stuff. Yeah, I think like there's so much talk about what you shoot with, isn't there? And I realise now that all these professional cameras, they like function in any condition and stuff like that. But it doesn't mean they take the nicest looking picture. So yeah, you sometimes have to go way back in time to find like a really nice, like a nice lens or a nice camera. And when you find it, it's like you cling onto it.
Yeah, I think if you kind of like, well, especially like for me and for like T as well, it's like when you just have like a really bad camera and you have to make the images look great out of that, then I feel like you work all of the other elements outside of that.
Definitely.
So like learning how to use a camera and doing it like that is way better. But then when it comes down to taking like supremely amazing images, having a Leica like yourself,
or a Mamiya.
Yeah,
I think they're almost two conversations. Like one, like constraining your options is like a massively productive way to sort of like refine your creativity. To instead of like having like a zoom lens is like the first thing that, because you want like the versatility perhaps, but when you don't have a zoom lens, like you're forced to look at one frame. You're forced to like to get to know like that specific. Do you want?
Is this window closed?
It doesn't really close properly. I could jam it. Should we put a towel?
Nah, it's fine.
Because it is. Draw the curtains. It will absorb some sound. That's like the butt of. It's so annoying with all my even watching films and stuff.
This is just what happens when you're doing a podcast right next to Camberwell Green.
We wait for the sirens to hit.
Oh yeah, it's almost rush hour. There's not even that many cars
this is quiet time. You know, like 3 a.m, because you've got the hospital up there. It just gets nuts.
Oh yeah, I bet.
That's why I sleep with a fan on in the middle of winter.
So how come you've got a window that doesn't close?
I have a window that doesn't close. I've got like electricity. I got heating like 1 hour of the day.
Really? How come?
It's on a timer, and the landlords, they control everything.
This is a guardianship, right?
Yeah. So I live in a guardianship with 50 other people, and I mean it's interesting, but I feel like I'm in this like weird limbo of like not quite a squat, not quite a real person, and I'm just like slumming it, and it's good for work though. I mean like, yeah. So I was telling you earlier, but doing like a portrait series on all the different residents. Everyone's so interesting. You can imagine like the people that are attracted to like low rent and broken windows, and they're
people much like ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. The creative types who needs food.
The starving artist.
Yes, the instant ramen crew, and but they have the most interesting faces. So that's something that I think that I was craving a project for so long, or like you need a creative outlet that's not just a pretty picture. You need to create like work that actually means something or has something to say. That's the thing. You have to. It's like being a writer and being like the most eloquent writer, stringing the best sentence together, but then not having anything to write about. It doesn't matter how good you are writing that sentence. If it's about hummus, well, hummus is important.
Oh mate, don't go saying hummus. I'd read a piece on hummus.
A whole long read on hummus. And it's the same in photography. It's like if you're not saying something about, you know, your relationship with the world or your relationship with your subjects or anything, whatever you point your camera at, if you're not saying something, then it kind of takes that edge off whether your work's going to be read or meaningful or people are going to actually pay attention to it. So,
is that how this project?
Yeah, I think so.
Then?
So, we're under the tutelage of some really great photographers. instead of like photographing, I used to go really far afield to photograph like Nepal or Burma or wherever I could get to, because it's just so enticing. It's like everywhere you point the camera is amazing as well, and you come back with amazing shots and you can sell them and you're like, whoa. But then like they were just sort of like, what's my relationship with those shots? I was like, well, because they're awesome. Because they're awesome. Or because you know, I like traveling and that. And so they were like, look, what around you is interesting, like on your doorstep. And then stupidly, like I didn't even see, I want to be a portrait photographer. I didn't really even see they were surrounded by like 50 people that were all really interesting. And because the light's kind of shit in this place, or kind of shitty around here. But then they like find your light, find your space, and then photograph stuff that's close to you, that means stuff to you. So the last like 6 months, like that's really what I've been doing. And then so like the work is not, you know, your work changes. Well, so because it is sort of like a much more personal approach, and then you start seeing these projects that people have been making, you know, like years before you and stuff, and you're like, wow, okay. You start to understand like how much people pour into these like incredible projects, and they've found that. I mean, obviously they found their style way before, and then so hopefully down the line, like just keep photographing this space, and then magic will happen.
Well, I guess when you're photographing like such a similar subject every day or every week or however frequently you're doing it, you're kind of continuously looking for new bits to add into it. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's like what you're saying about shooting with a bad camera. When you constrain everything else, when you take away everything, you strip it down, you have to be creative within like a really finite space. And that creates like a fluency, I think, like a coherence, like a thread. And I think that, you know, well, I think it's quite documented that that's like what is missing from a lot of photographers. Well, like if you have a series that has no thread, it's just a series of snapshots. And that, I feel like for me, was like showed somewhat of like an immaturity in my work, where I had lots of snapshots but no thread. So I think in an effort to get that coherence, just photograph the same space. That doesn't, I think there's a paranoia of like, okay, it needs to be visually interesting, every shot has to be different. But really, if what, you know, my theory is that if what I'm photographing, each person is, so people is what I photograph. Each people's if each people's is interesting enough, I mean, the background, and it's just a stage for what I want to say about that person. So hopefully they'll come across your little weird web of light and space, and they won't yell at you, and you can take their picture and then just scuttle away like the criminal that you are.
With your shifty man-made bodge job reflector.
Yeah, my pizza box.
Oh, here goes the siren. Mate, so I ran into you today and you were holding a pizza box covered in tin foil.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure if you were trying to keep your pizza like extra warm.
I mean, it's like the latest innovation in subtle street photography. It's
because I can see a reflector behind you, but it's people are maybe less inclined to walk past an actual reflector than a pizza box with a bit of tin foil on it.
I think that's something that I'm really exploring at the moment, is sort of your interactions with people is what you are capturing. So with like how you hold the camera, what camera you have, you know, whether it's big, small, like where you're standing is almost more relevant than like, I don't know, what they look like, because they might turn to you and like look at you in a really curious way, and in that millisecond you've got something. But if you stop someone, you're like, hi, can I take your picture please? And they're like, why? And you're like, oh, it's for an art project. And then they're like, okay, cool. Yeah. And then they let you take their picture. Then they smile, and it's like, there's nothing more contrived than a smile. And you're like, well, it's gone. There's no magic. There's nothing. There's no interest. There's no intrigue. Whereas when there's someone staring at a foiled up pizza box, there's bouncing light into their face, they're curious. Sometimes they don't see you, because, you know, it's like, and so hopefully that's what I'm interested in. It's like a genuine moment that like reveals a bit more about, well, Campbell in this case. I think I'm gonna expand it, and I'm gonna do like
bigger pizza
boxes, and I'm gonna get like maybe even a whole whiteboard at one point, just bang it on the side of the street. You know, like I mean, as long as it's legal, you might as well. I mean, you know, as well, everything's been shot. So, and I haven't really seen, you know, like, so this is me, like, finding my niche.
Experimenting.
Yeah. It's really fun, actually, because, like, making new work is, like, paralyzing. Especially when you're trying to force it. You know, you're like, I find with still stuff, you can try so many different things, and you might not, because you're like a one-man band, and you're out there, and if you're not enjoying it, you're not making any good work. And part of the enjoyment is like feeling like you're making something new and good. So if you haven't found a good project and you're just on the street and you're just shooting, you're like, and it just all feels so shit. You're just like, and you're not getting, so it's a negative loop of like, and then you get back and you try and force another thing. And so like, for me, this is like my effort to just sort of like channel my focus. And
it's kind of hard, isn't it, when you become a little bit more established and you kind of maybe make a bit more of a name for yourself, then people expect like really polished stuff from you, but you also kind of expect it from yourself, and it's perhaps a little bit harder to be a bit more playful again and kind of experiment and maybe get a lot of things wrong in projects.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I think like so I always think of it as you get better at photography or any discipline, it's like your taste gets way better. And of it, sometimes like your work and your abilities haven't really caught up with your taste necessarily. So, and in that sort of weird limbo where you're just trying to be as good as the work that you like, you kind of panic a bit. And I mean, so yeah, when I first started getting like commissions, and then I would start shooting in a way that I wanted to get commissions. And then you get really muddled because you start shooting in a way that you think like editors might like, and then you realize that like that's not necessarily a smart move for your work. And so stripping it back and just being really experimental is like way harder than it sounds. And so I reckon like especially last year, there was a period like a real like self where I didn't really make any new work because I mean I got more commissions, I guess, but like most of them won't see the light of day because they were just like paying the bills, and you get in that loop and stuff, and you become quite closed creatively, and so then like being open to fail. Like I went and shot like 3 or 4 different ideas for things like in the last month, and like some of them were really bad. Like really, I remember being...
What have you been shooting?
So I wanted to do one on the last train. I wanted to do a project on like the last train, you know, like people that might have missed their last train back from like big stations. I had this idea of it being like, you know, like a funny play on like drunk London, or, you know, just like the weird way that we commute here and there. But then got to the station, the light was terrible. And then after like 30 minutes, just got told to leave by staff, and I was like, oh yeah, obviously that was going to happen. I was like, well, that was a waste of 4 hours. But then at the same time, you're like, okay, well, I tried it, you know. And then you're kind of like, well, you know, no harm done there. Like I had this vision of it being like this amazing project. And then the next day, you're just like, well, okay, that failed, nothing happened, so let's try the next one. And that's quite a nice space to operate in.
Yeah, I mean, at least you tried it.
Yeah. And it was really just one evening wasted, just a couple of Netflix shows. So
I would have thought that could have been like a great project.
Oh, it will be down the line.
Like
I think
down the line.
Down the line.
They're not getting them.
Hey, yeah. I think I just need to be a bit more confrontational with it or something, like because I was trying to do it on a more subtle, like, you know, find the moments of people like running for trains and then portraits of them after and stuff. But we'll see. Maybe it'll be more like, you know, help people get home and portrait them on the way.
Can I take your portrait and I'll get you an Uber?
but you have to pay for it.
I'll hail you an Uber on your phone.
Yeah. Invoice in the post.
What's it like asking people for their portraits? Because people seem so suspicious these days.
London is like is like probably the most hostile environment for it that I've come across. Like when I'm away, people like are thankful that you want to take their picture. Like,
like across Asia and stuff, they're like calling their friend, like, come on, get the family out here. This guy wants to take a photo. It's like his dreamland of where you're like, and in London, everyone is like eternally suspicious. So I've gone out and I've purposefully just tried to photograph people that don't look like don't look like they want their photograph taken, to just break that loop, that sort of like, just to become a bit more hardened to it. And it did work. It has worked. Like sometimes you'll see something and you're just like, I need to take that picture. Like I need, every fiber of your being's like, I need that portrait. And then you might catch eye contact with them and then it's gone. If you hesitate, then you're already a creep. You can't, there's no coming back. I've never come back from that and been like, sometimes I've done a lap and then I've come back, I'm like, hi, can I take a picture? And they'll be like, what? And you get in, I don't know, it just like, I've not really got a shot that I've been like, wow. What has, like, sometimes, like, shooting people doing what they're doing for me has been much more, I think that's where I'm going to head down. But it was important, it has been important to confront people and be like, can I take your picture, and see their reactions. And it does actually, because you can be quite like, nerve anxious. Yeah, exactly. And you mess up the shot 9 times out of 10 because you don't want to take up much of their time. You're literally like, you're not thinking about your settings, you're not thinking about light or anything. But it's just like, that's definitely a case of the more you shoot, the easier it gets. Yeah, I did. There was one time when I went into Brixton, it was like super nice evening light. I was like, oh cool, I'll go see what's going on in Brixton. And it was like everyone was in a massive rush. I took maybe 2 portraits.
Yeah.
One of them was of another photographer who was taking photos.
So you just switched.
I was like, I just got chatting to him. He was like, pretty cool guy.
Oh, so you stopped people?
Yeah, I was just asking people if I could take.
Yeah.
And I just gave up after a couple of hours.
Yeah, it's not fun.
But again, like, I'm glad I did it because I was like, but yeah, I got that feeling of like,
you're confronted, you feel like a creep.
Yeah, you do. Like, and they're like, what's it for? And you're like, personal
my special
project.
collection. My personal project. Yeah, and I would gravitate towards like old people. One, because they have really interesting faces, and 2, because it can't be misconstrued as like something perverted. So I think like my way around that was just to shoot first, ask later. I mean, it's legal.
Or you get a more candid shot, don't you?
Yeah, and also it's like there's so much interesting stuff going on around you, and people as they're walking, they have like really unique and interesting expressions. Siren. And when people are posing, you have to really pose, and the light has to be amazing. And if I'm shooting medium format, then I'll actually stop people. But I haven't really.
It's a very expensive way to be shooting people in the street.
And that's the thing. I think that's why that's why it's not been. That's the kind of stuff that's not been done. So, but yeah, I mean, even that, you've got to really be careful. Like, if you want a genuine expression, some people just have them naturally, so you can stop them and stuff. And I've seen like some photographers, like what's his name? Niall McDermott. Niall. He does it really well. So he's got like his first book, which is just involved. It's same kind of thing in the same space. It was just at Vauxhall bus station, and that was very candid. Like you can see, and just like he saw the good light, like that good light. And then as he moved on, like you can see he started approaching people more and taking more staged portraits, and it's interesting to see how the works sort of evolved. I mean, I personally, I think like his first book, like that first series, was like his strongest work. But like
quite often the way, really, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, I guess you know you make it with a fluency and an open. You know, no one knows you, so you're just like, woo,
Whatever.
pictures. Yeah, yeah.
Less pressure.
Less pressure. Yeah, exactly. And then I think he drove to like every town in the UK. I think it was town by town or something.
That's a lot of towns.
A lot of towns and a lot of film, and I think he posed people, you know, and it's, I think some of the work, I mean, it's beautiful. And I think like he's but it's interesting seeing like he's got both approaches, and personally like I think one has a lot more character than the other. I think when you're shooting people candidly, but I guess it's how it's a lot of it is to do with you know, like what's your relationship with the street. I mean, this is street photography at the end of the day.
What's your relationship with
What's
the
your
street?
relationship with, and like how do you know, like how do you feel when you if you are have an affinity towards like some more seated portraits, then you just have to run with that. Tough though. Definitely anxiety inducing.
Do you think like taking those portraits in London, where it's really difficult to get people to agree to getting portraits, like the skill that you get from that really helps when you do like assignments abroad?
Yeah, definitely. I think I always think of London, you know, every time I'm having a tough time, and it's London. It can be. I mean, it is really tough sometimes. Like I was photographing on the Green, and you just get nothing. I mean, I had like a 20-minute conversation with this guy. I helped him like text his. He was having trouble texting his ex-wife and stuff. And I was like, helped him out. You know, we wrote him a message and stuff. And I was like, oh, can I take a picture? He's like, no way. It's like, okay, thanks. You know, like
Thanks for nothing.
Thanks for. I regret texting your ex-wife deeply, and then you're just so demoralized and you're just so deflated that you're like, oh, I'm just gonna go home. And so it is quite dangerous. And then, but I always have this thought. It's like this is like a training ground, isn't it? I was like, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. If you can make it on the streets of London, you can make it anywhere. And then when you go away, it's so easy. People like asking you to take pictures. And so I've been photographing in London maybe for the last year, with no focus of travel stuff. I think in partly just because I just couldn't. It's like a real weakness for me. I couldn't see any beauty in the streets of London. I couldn't see London the way I wanted. You know, the way that when you have like, it's not that you think there's a good photo there. It's like when you're traveling, it's like you can't not take the photos. You can't. You can't sleep. Sometimes I get up like because you're like, oh, it's good light. I have to get. It's almost stressful, but at the same time, you've got so many. You know, it's like you're compelled. Like every fibre of your being is compelled to take these photos. And in London, I get there and I'd be like, I should go out.
It's like a chore, isn't it? I should.
Oh yeah.
I should not watch Netflix. I should go out on the street.
Exactly. And I'd never really experienced it. Like you really, because I didn't see the same, because it's not the same beauty. You know, nothing's new and shiny and exciting. There's no like the golden hour light, like with some eagles and a diving, but I don't know, whatever. And you're like, okay, where you could be on like lots of these shots are shot on an iPhone because it's so beautiful. I think there was like one of the issues I shot with like the one of the travel magazines was the front cover was shot on an iPhone, and they were like really proud of it. I was like, okay, cool, we're gonna go kill my career.
Yeah.
But you're like, well, you look at the shot, you're like, yeah, I mean the light's amazing. There's no you know, it's like, well, yeah, you can get that shot on there. And so like these shots are like fed to you, whereas in London it's like you have to really work for it, and you can't just go out aimlessly. Unfortunately, well, you kind of can aimlessly in
you
the
gotta
sense.
go out a lot though. It's kind of
You have to find. That's why we were talking about finding your niche, finding your space and stuff is so important.
I got a photo this morning. I was just waiting for a delayed train at London Bridge, and like, I mean, the light today has been amazing, but it was like morning light, and I just looked like around the platform, and I just took it on my iPhone, like probably one of the first actual photos I've taken on my iPhone in ages. It came out amazing.
Oh, so good.
It's just like that, yeah.
I think that's
light
it's important. Yeah, the camera you have is the best camera. You know, as in
your hand.
In your hand.
That's
If you're not carrying it around with you, then it doesn't matter if you have like the Mamiya
at home in a box.
Yeah, pristine. but yeah, it's so true. Like, and now, so it's only recently, you know, when sort of seeing, like, I'm getting quite excited about shooting in London. I think there's like a hunger. I was speaking to my pa. Well, I was on a shoot with my pa, and he was saying, like, he doesn't really believe in like talent. Doesn't really believe that there's like this thing like talent, like photographers have talent. They either work hard or they don't. He said the number one reasons photographers make it is because they are hardworking. And that, you know, that doesn't mean, you know, like that means putting in the hours, you know, and he said that he, obviously he takes amazing pictures. He's got some amazing pictures. He said the only reason he takes amazing pictures is because he takes so many bad ones. And it's kind of true. It's like, you just have to be out there and you have to be shooting. And then, and that was actually, because obviously he's the guy, isn't he? So it's like, that was quite eye-opening. It's sort of like, don't be afraid to take bad pictures. So now I just go and I'm taking loads of bad pictures, but then every now and then you get a really good one. But then obviously you'll learn every shot you're learning. And my theory is that if you keep learning, if you're constantly learning and you're getting a bit better, and you set yourself up. So this is, if you set yourself up in a way that, you know, you've got feedback and you're looking at your work in an open way and you're malleable. So you're getting a little bit better each day, each shoot. You learn something maybe, and, you know, like, you're going to head down a path where you'll eventually be really good. Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
You'd want to think if you put in that many hours and that much work that it's going to get you somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess it's really intimidating when you're just like something like, okay, you can get up on a day down a shoot and be like, right, what do I do today? And you're like, okay, just make some great work. You're like, wicked. Then like 6 hours later, you're still sat there on, like, in your pants. Procrastinating. You're like, I haven't watched Netflix, so it's been a productive day. No, you're almost paralyzed because you want so badly to make this work, and you know, you're only going to be let down if you go out and don't, you know, you're like, oh, I want to make great work. I want to say something. You know exactly. I'm almost a point where I'm surrounded by like photographers that are like really great, better than me. And so you're absorbing all this knowledge and you're like, okay, wow, yeah, I get it. And then you actually go out and do it and you're like, oh yeah, forgot that it takes years.
Forgot it takes 10,000 hours.
10,000 hours. Oh, it's been 20 minutes though. So I'm like, oh, can I get a prize yet?
I feel like there is like a lot of it's hard work, but there is a certain amount of skill and talent involved.
Yeah, I think.
I guess it's different, isn't it?
It's true. I mean, I've seen people that just have an eye.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I was like, oh, do I have an eye? Because, I mean, that's, you know, when you first pick up a camera, people have like an instinct. Where are you going to place certain things in the frame? I don't think you don't see light. You know, the camera sees that for you at the start. Unless you're like the Mozart photographer. And you come down, you're like, yeah, 3.9.
I saw the light.
I just see the world like a 35mm camera. Because cameras are way dumber than your eyes. So you know, like, it takes years to like be like, oh, that's good light, or because stuff that you assume is good light, the camera can't read it because you have like, yeah, I mean, the dynamic range on like your eyes is just like doesn't compare to these things. So when you start seeing it, but like where you place stuff in the frame is like one thing, you know, that trying to achieve that balance or trying to say something. So yeah, maybe you start with a bit of talent there. Or like you start with the baseline of like, okay, yeah, they know how to make a pretty picture. But then from there, you know, it's just like research, hard work, taste. It's just like you're being constantly influenced by everything around you, whether it's illustrators, painters, other photographers. I think I don't know necessarily if other photographers is a good source of sort of like inspiration. It's not really a word, but
yeah, I had to unfollow a lot of people on Instagram because I found my work being way too, what's the word? Just got
homogenous.
Too caught up with like what other people were doing and be like, oh, like copying the style or feeling shit because it doesn't look like that.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's such a tricky balance, isn't it? Because you want to be influenced by the people that you love. And this amazing, you know, like, and your taste is what drives, the taste is why we're all in it in the first place, you know, because you love the discipline. And then at the same time, you can't shoot like someone else, because then you're not your own entity. You're never going to get anywhere.
You're not fulfilling your own life's work.
You're just a copycat or whatever. But I mean, everyone's copy. No one is. You look at all the great photographers; they all had influences.
Yeah. Well, everyone is influenced at some point.
Yeah.
And like every body of work that comes from anyone is a pick of a lot of different inspirations.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's, yeah.
Great art steals, or all of that jazz. But yeah, and you have to make it your own in a way. And so I guess, but when you're learning and when you're trying to find like your style, which I'm still in the process of. So you're trying to be malleable and stuff. Whether it's productive to be looking at trends and photographers is like, it's tough, because sometimes you just got to stick with what you've got. Whether sometimes if you have a shitty camera, like that could be enough to just constrain you enough that that's your style, or you have a great camera. I don't know.
Well, some people just shoot on point and shoots and have made amazing careers for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like being different is a massive part of being successful, because but then you can't just choose to be different. I think it's a natural journey. So I guess it's like, I always think of it like again, so this is what is like how Picasso, who's obviously on my level of awesomeness, how if you look at his work, he could paint like amazingly detailed, and whether it's whatever style, in the more traditional style, and then he unlearns it, and then he creates, he paints like the inner child, and then he was Picasso. He didn't just start painting like Picasso like as a 3-year-old, so it's sort of like, okay, so amalgamate and absorb all this knowledge from all these different photographers and everything, and then just try and unlearn it all with the knowledge that it's all there, like how to shoot in all these different styles and everything. So you're making a conscious choice to shoot with your iPhone or whatever, to shoot shitty photography, where it's not shitty because you've chosen to shoot it that way. So your knowledge kind of justifies whatever style you choose, and you can draw upon all of this stuff. So that's where, I mean, down the line, well, yeah, and then, well, we'll see.
I mean, as long as you're continuously challenging yourself and learning, like, it's only gonna materialize into something. You'd have hoped.
You'd think.
With that hard work.
Yeah, exactly.
With the hard work.
With those 20 hours that I've committed to this.
I mean, you're using like a lot of natural light in your... Is that something you're doing kind of on purpose, or is that...
Yeah, definitely. I think like natural light creates like nuances, and I mean, it's more beautiful than any light that you can really set up in any occasion. I mean, it's it's you pay for it because you've got no control over it. So you have to see a space, and you have to understand where the light's coming from, whether it's good, and you can't mold the light, but you have to work around it, and you have to. And so, like in a studio environment, like I learned to light with lights, and I think that's a really important way of helping you see what you're looking for, and then it helps you appreciate like, okay, like natural light is enough. You don't need like, and how if you do see a space or see, and you are able to get that like the contrast ratio that you want, and you can, and you have like enough time to do it within the day, then it's always worth it. But it's the danger of shooting natural light is obviously that you just run out of it. Now it's like 3 o'clock and sun's down and you're done.
Yeah.
But with especially with film, there's less room for experimentation, I guess, and sometimes like setting up lights, you really constrain your space, and like some natural light, I mean, film just reads it so beautifully that it just seems worth the effort. And I think like if you can get away with it, so if you have a shoot that's like, you have a bit of, like a bit of leeway, a bit of time, you don't have a specific end product, then you can wait for those happy accidents, and you can just, and that natural light, just like, and 9 times out of 10 it's just so much better. Like, you can take lights along and shoot with that, but you'll always use the natural shots if you can get. But then I guess you just, you sacrifice some control, and you have to be more adaptable.
How do you choose between film and digital? Is that down to light preferences as well?
Yeah, I think like
and how rich you're feeling at the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's how much ramen you can stand eating.
It's quite easy to, when the light's amazing, to get carried away and just bang out about £50 worth of shots, and then you're like,
oh, I'm not eating.
I don't know if any of those are any good.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you've got enough light. So what I like doing now is shooting. I mean, it's just if it's a commission, like shoot it on digital. And as you go, when you have something that you like, then you switch to film. So you'll only be shooting 3 or 4 rolls, maybe 5 or 6 rolls, but they'll just be like the highlights, and then you end up with a digital backup of the whole thing. So you can deliver some selects like straight away. So the editor sees them, and they're there, and while he's sending off the film to get developed, and that comes back a few days later. So, and then you send that over, and generally they're like way better, because it's film is film for it's.
There's a reason why digital cameras keep trying to emulate film,
and there's a reason why people are paying £1.50 a shot to get it done. So yeah, so if you can do both, but like if it's a night shoot or if there's low light, then film you just can't. You forget how slow these cameras are. Like even gold now, it struggles. So, but personal work, I try and shoot fully on. As much personal portrait work, always on film. But then street stuff, just a bit less relevant. Like light's so dynamic, and everything happens so fast that film just couldn't keep up. So, yeah, it's each thing has its own time and a place, for sure.
And every time I see you, you're doing such a varied amount of shoots. Like, what is there a direction with like your paid work that you're pushing it, or are you just, is it more like the personal projects that you're just kind of being more playful with?
Yeah, so I think in terms of the commission stuff, it's a case of, I guess that's more of a format thing. So like trying to shoot on film as much as possible. And so now I'm trying to focus specifically on like editorial portrait work. I'm trying to carve an enclave there. Obviously it's like quite a competitive space. So finding the shoots that both pay the bills and push your work forward, quite rare. But
you did some stuff with Nat Geo, didn't you?
Yeah, so it's like the travel stuff's kind of where it all began in a way. So that was the Traveller, National Geographic Traveller, who which is really, so they're really self-directed shoots. So you'll have to go out, shoot it, and then there's always a risk that it just doesn't work. But and that's a real, travel stuff's beautiful. It's just like, it's all the dream, isn't it? You're just traveling, and everything looks amazing. So
beautiful colours, beautiful people.
Yes, you don't really need to push any style or anything. You're just shooting what's in front of you. It's just, you can't help but
get great shots.
Yeah, can't help it. It just happens. But with portraiture, it's much more stylized, especially in London. It's much more. So, and I think like at the moment, as like technically getting more astute with like lighting within like a specific time and a specific environment, like a constrained environment. That's where I'm growing. And so slowly just pushing away at that. And then really where I'm more playful is in the personal work. Because got a long way to go, obviously, but like it does feel like even if no one's watching, it's like it's nice to just be pushing yourself and like creating stuff that I'm excited about is basically
it's quite easy to get caught up with paid work and then start to kind of resent the thing you should be most passionate about.
Yeah, I feel like I have a whole black hole, like about a year of just lost, where you're just shooting and you're losing focus, and it's like, yeah, I mean, if you have bills to pay, and you just get so enticed by like any paid work that comes your way. You're like, yeah, I need that, and I want to shoot for this, shoot for that, and then you start resenting the camera a bit. And yeah, so it's only really recently that I'm just really trying to separate A from B. I think it's a really important thing, and I think it means that poorer than I were, but
when like being someone that's travelled and photographed quite a few places, how do you kind of like get fully engrossed in the culture? Because I think there's few photographers that actually get those really amazing